LSDMC, and that stands for Local School Decision Making Committee. And so that group, one of their jobs in partnership with the school-based leadership team is to work with the principal, and they help approve the budget that's created by our school leadership team, or in some cases it's known as IOT, Instructional Leadership Team. So the IOT formulates the budget, or comes up with what the budget should look like, how many teachers we need based on enrollment, and then it goes to LSDMC. So as I said before, it used to be a process of being site-based managed, where we made the decisions of, okay, hey, we need 5 teachers in primary and 6 teachers in intermediate and things of that nature. It's all based on enrollment. But it also came to you deciding how you were going to use any extra money you may have had. But nowadays, there's not much extra money for me because I'm not Title I. Where schools that are Title I, they have like the school improvement grant money, or they have the Title I funding, where they really get to decide how to use it. But for a school like us, we don't have that option. So, for example, we had to make some cuts in regards to additional funding for our instructional supplies. I'll use this year was cut, where typically we would receive an extra $10,000 because we weren't a Title I school, to use to pay for our textbooks and materials. All the other schools in our districts, their textbooks and materials were covered by the district, but that $10,000 was for me to cover my books for my teachers. Well, because of funding issues and concerns, that money got pulled back, and so now we have to put a request into our deputy superintendent to receive it. So for us, how that's communicated out is when we have the leadership team meetings, when I have my LSDMC meetings, that discussion is held. And so my LSDMC team and my IOT and PTA kind of help me think of, okay, where can they pick up if it's an item they can pick up. For example, I have a program here where we offer Spanish during the school day. And I was using previous funding from a grant that I wrote 3 years ago. Well, that grant funding is now gone. And as a result, the PTA said, okay, and so here's a way we'll be willing to help pick that up because we want our kids to still have the exposure to Spanish. So that's just kind of one example. When it comes to the textbooks and like our instructional supply being cut this year, I had to cut the amount that would go to teachers. So instead of them having, let's say, $400 to use to buy additional instructional materials, it's going to be cut down to like $150.
Okay.
That's kind of a tricky question. Let's say my belief is I think all schools in a district should have the same basic supplies and materials for their students. So I know because it's hard because every school can be different, and the needs of every school, especially when you're talking about a city school that has different communities, and some communities are more wealthier than others, because it goes back to that previous question you asked me. However, I don't think schools should be penalized if they are in a wealthy area and you assume that they don't need it. So I think there are basic materials, supplies, and textbooks that should be provided to all schools, despite whatever the needs may be in that community. And then from that, there should always be an assessment done on and prioritization of what the extras will be given. So I think the basics should be provided to everybody, and then any extras, it should be based on a priority basis, meaning, okay, this school doesn't have this, so here's where the funding we can allot this. I think it should be prioritized. We have the essentials. I think it's a combination of both, and I think it's based on the individual teachers in that school, like where your focus areas are. I think if everybody's provided with those essentials, but you find out based on your student population they have more intensive needs, whether for intervention or for enrichment, I think then that should be supplied. So for example, if you find a school that has several students that are needing remedial support, they should be given that funding to help them with the remedial support. But then you have another school, let's say like Hyde Park, and they have a gifted program and they need more support to help with enrichment, they should be provided that support with enrichment. So I think the essentials should be there, and it's based on your school. Your school needs to be able to state the claim of what the extra should be.
Hello, everybody. My name is James McCray. These are the 4 questions that you may or may not have heard when I was doing the interview with Angela Cook Frazier. These responses that I'll have for you now are from Ms. Rowetter at AWL. Due to some technical things that were going on, we were not able to record that. However, I did do the interview. These are her answers as well as the questions. So if you're watching the video, you're not understanding the responses, these are the questions for that, so I do apologize. The first one was, what are the unique challenges to leading a school with your financial demographic? Ms. Rowetters' thing was the same thing as Angela's, in terms of she only has $100 for copy clicks for teachers. The leadership team, which is usually the ILT team, kind of decides what they're going to do left with their budget. And that's kind of what's left to contingency, and it's usually between $50,000 to $60,000 yearly. The second question was, what do you find beneficial or detrimental about the state funding formula for your school? Ms. Rowetters' response was, it's illegal and found unconstitutional. Unfunded mandates and ESL mandates and gifted ESL mandates aren't being funded for those kids. So basically, AWL is it's a school that has a lot of foreign language. And so it gets a lot of kids that are refugees from Africa as well as some other nations. And the way that it's funded for Title I schools, because she's a Title I school, they don't get funded for that. And so it's kind of hard to, they get funded for certain things in ESL, but they don't get funded for the gifted ESL students, as well as, just some other mandates that they have through Title I that they don't have at their school. So that was kind of the response to that question. The third question was, do you believe it's better if the school is uniformly wealthy or poor for cohesiveness and a level playing field? Her response to that question was, money shouldn't make cohesiveness in the school. Resources might, but not money. Money should not be a contributing factor on how the school is managed or how the community interacts with the school. The last question was, what is one thing you have learned from a student in poverty compared to a wealthy student? Does this impact your decision making when it comes time to look at the budget? Now, she's only been at AWL. She's never been in another school. So she's only dealt with that particular district. And so she hasn't done the comparison between a wealthy district as well as an unwealthy district. And because she has those refugee students, her answer was a little different. She looked at her refugee students versus her American-born students, and she felt like the refugee students have a greater desire and appreciation for their education. They're very ambitious. They have rich goals. Whereas American-born students, she doesn't feel that need to kind of compete on a global level and really appreciate their education. For the second part of that question was, does it impact your decision making when it comes time to look at the budget? She simply said no, it's not that important. So those are the responses to the questions. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.